February 1959. Deep in the Ural mountains of the Soviet Union, 9 experienced hikers set out on a journey they would never return from. When rescuers finally found their camp weeks later, the tent had been torn open from the inside. The hikers had fled barefoot into the frozen night in temperatures of -30 degrees Celsius. Some were found with crushed ribs and fractured skulls, injuries so severe, investigators said they could only have been caused by a force comparable to a car crash. No external wounds, no signs of struggle, no explanation. The Soviet government classified the case. The official verdict? Quote, a compelling unknown force. Think about that for a moment. 9 people, trained athletes, experienced in the wilderness, people who had survived harsh conditions before. They had everything they needed to stay alive: food, warm clothes, equipment, right there in that tent. And yet something made them abandon all of it, something so terrifying that freezing to death in the snow seemed like the better option. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident, and more than 60 years later, nobody has been able to fully explain it. Let's go back to the beginning. January 23rd, 1959. A group of 10 students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute depart for a ski trek across the northern Ural Mountains. Their destination? A Torten mountain, a name that in the local Mansi language roughly translates to "don't go there." The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old, experienced, respected. Among the hikers, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Lyudmila Dubinina, and 7 others. All of them trained athletes, all of them had done this before. One member, Yuri Yudin, fell ill shortly into the journey and turned back. He was the only one who survived. For the rest of his life, he carried the guilt of being the one who walked away. On February 1st, the group set up camp on the slope of Kholat Syakhl, a mountain whose name means, in the Mansi language, Dead Mountain. Igor Dyatlov was not just a student. He was known among his peers as someone who could handle anything the mountain threw at him. He had built his own radio equipment. He had led multiple expeditions before. His friends trusted him completely. Zinaida Kolmogorova, 22 years old, was described by those who knew her as fearless and full of life. She kept a diary throughout the journey. Her last entry was written the evening of February 1st. She wrote about the weather, about the snow, about how the group was in good spirits. There was no sign that anything was wrong. Semyon Zolotaryov was the oldest in the group, 37 years old, a war veteran, a man who had seen real danger. He had only recently joined the group, replacing another member at the last minute. To this day, some researchers find his presence unusual, his background murky, his reasons for joining this specific expedition unclear. But on that cold February evening, all 9 of them set up their tent, ate their dinner, and prepared to sleep. Nobody knows exactly what happened next, because no one who was there survived to tell it. When the group failed to return on schedule, a search party was sent out. On February 26th, they found the tent. It was half covered in snow, and it had been cut open from the inside. The hikers' belongings were still inside, their boots, their coats, their food. Whatever made them run, they didn't stop to grab anything, they just ran. Footprints led downhill toward the forest. Some prints showed people walking on bare feet, others on one boot in -30 degrees. The first bodies were found at the edge of the forest. Two of the hikers, Krivonishenko and Doroshenko, were found near the remains of a small fire. Their hands were burned, as if they had tried to warm themselves until the very last moment. 3 more bodies were found between the forest and the tent. Investigators believe they had been trying to return to camp. They never made it. Zinaida Kolmogorova, the young woman who had written so cheerfully in her diary just hours before, was found 630 meters from the tent. Her posture suggested she had been crawling, trying to move forward, even at the end. Igor Dyatlov himself was found 300 meters from the forest, lying on his back, his face turned toward the tent. As if, in his final moments, he was looking back at where they had come from. What were they looking at? What were they running from? The snow held no answers. Search teams combed the area for weeks. They found personal belongings scattered in the snow, a camera, a flashlight, a broken branch, evidence of people moving in panic, in darkness, in desperate cold. But no signs of any other person, no tracks from an outsider, no evidence of an attack. Whatever happened to the Dyatlov group, it came from somewhere the investigators couldn't see.